Get the hell back. We're torching this piece of garbage right now." The words, sharp and jagged as broken glass, rip through the sterile hum of the terminal. TSA officer Frank Miller's voice is a weapon, and he aims it directly at Dr. Anya Sharma. Before she can process the assault, he seizes her diplomatic passport, his thick fingers smudging the official gold seal. With a theatrical grunt of effort, he tears the document in two. The sound is shockingly intimate, a violent severing of identity. He lets the two halves flutter into a sterile, stainless steel bin, a sacrificial altar in his kingdom of conveyor belts and X-ray machines. He strikes a match, the sulphurous flare a brief, angry star in the fluorescent glare of the airport. He drops it in. Flames erupt, greedily consuming the pages that charted Anya's life, her work, her very existence. The fire licks at her photograph, blackening her features as a crowd of travelers gawks, their faces a mixture of morbid curiosity and fearful apathy. "Arms out, legs spread, now." Miller barks the commands with the relish of a drill sergeant breaking a new recruit. He treats her not as a person, but as a problem to be solved with brute force. His hands, invasive and cold, begin the pat-down. They are not the professional, detached hands of a security officer. They are instruments of humiliation. They linger too long, probe too deep, a deliberate violation of her personal space intended to unmake her, to reduce her from a world-renowned neurosurgeon to a quivering suspect. His fellow officers, a gallery of smirking sycophants, watch the performance with tacit approval. "A fake's a fake," Miller mutters, his breath hot and sour near her ear. "Doesn't matter if your suit costs more than my car." But under the public degradation, a different kind of machine is whirring to life. Anya's mind, trained for the meticulous precision of brain surgery, becomes a forensic recorder. She catalogs everything. Miller, Frank, badge number 734. His partner, a younger, nervous man she notes as Bryant, badge 92. The exact time on the terminal clock. The faces in the crowd, the witnesses who see and do nothing. Her expression remains a mask of placid neutrality, an unbreachable fortress carved from years of enduring such slights. "You people always think your fancy degrees are some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card," Miller sneers, the "you people" hanging in the air, thick and toxic. The last corner of her passport curls into a black ash, the security cameras silently drinking in the entire scene. "Before we go any further, I have to ask you, have you ever seen something like this happen? A moment of blatant injustice where everyone just stands by. What did you do? What do you wish you had done? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're there, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. At Beat Stories, we don't just tell stories. We confront the uncomfortable truths you won't see anywhere else. You won't want to miss what happens next. Anya's phone, sitting in the gray plastic bin with her other belongings, buzzes. A text message glows on the screen. "Landed? You're briefing the Surgeon General in 2 hours." The irony is a bitter pill. Here she stands, Dr. Anya Sharma, on the verge of being put in federal custody at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, while the upper echelons of the U.S. government await her expertise. She had just returned from a grueling 18-hour journey from a makeshift field hospital in Yemen. Her tailored charcoal suit, a silent armor for the professional world, is creased from sleeping in transit. An exhaustion so profound it feels bone-deep pulls at her, yet her posture is ramrod straight. It's a survival mechanism learned over a lifetime of being the only woman, the only person of color, in rooms filled with power and privilege. 3 weeks of performing life-saving neurological surgeries on civilians caught in a brutal conflict has left her spiritually drained. On her tablet are the notes for her White House briefing. a revolutionary new protocol for treating traumatic brain injuries in austere environments. Her work, her passion, has saved hundreds of lives, a fact entirely lost on the man currently treating her like a terrorist. From his perch at the checkpoint, Officer Miller had spotted her the moment she joined the line. He nudged his partner, Bryant. "Get a load of this one," he'd mumbled, a slight sneer twisting his lips. "Princess Grace coming through customs." He had a sixth sense for it, he believed, an instinct. $20 says her paperwork's a mess. Miller's instinct had a clear and undeniable pattern. Just last week, a supervisor had given him a gentle warning about his selection bias, a conversation that concluded not with a formal reprimand, but with a shared laugh and a clap on the back. As Anya approaches, Miller's bored slouch transforms into a rigid posture of authority. "Ma'am, step over here for a random secondary screening," he announces, his voice booming unnecessarily. He waves 3 white passengers through with barely a glance at their IDs, the word random a blatant lie. "And you'll need to remove that," he says, pointing a dismissive finger at the simple, elegant scarf covering her hair, a gesture of respect she'd adopted while working in the Middle East. There is no security rule that requires its removal. She knows it. He knows it. But it is a test of compliance, the first move in a game of power she's been forced to play countless times. With practiced poise, she unwinds the scarf, her movements fluid and dignified despite the rising tide of anger in her chest. She is intensely aware of the eyes on her, the silent judgment of the crowd. This isn't new. It's a different airport, a different officer, but the same moment of baseless suspicion. As she places her belongings in the bin, her mind is already rehearsing the opening lines of her briefing with the Surgeon General. It's another coping mechanism. Retreat into the world where she has control, where her intellect is valued, not viewed as a threat. Miller whispers to Bryant, just loud enough for Anya to hear. "Thinks her diplomatic papers make her special. Watch me." He picks up her passport with his thumb and forefinger, as if it were contaminated. He squints, his eyes flicking between her face and the photo with an exaggerated theatrical suspicion. "What was the purpose of your trip to Yemen?" he demands, his tone accusatory, ignoring the clear diplomatic stamps that document her medical mission. "I was leading a surgical team at a humanitarian clinic in Aden," Anya replies, her voice a carefully controlled monotone. "I am the chief of neurosurgery at Mount Sinai." Miller lets out a short, derisive snort. "This picture doesn't even look like you." He taps the photo, where her hair is styled differently. "That's a common trick." "My passport is valid. My hairstyle has changed. It's not uncommon, officer." With a loud snap, Bryant pulls on a pair of blue latex gloves and begins to ransack her carry-on. He upends her meticulously organized medical files, complex surgical diagrams and patient notes scattering across the grimy inspection table. When Anya instinctively reaches out to stop a crucial paper from falling to the floor, Miller barks, "Don't move! Do not touch a damn thing!" His hand drifts toward his belt, a clear, unspoken threat. A young woman in line behind them, a college student with a backpack covered in travel patches, watches with wide, horrified eyes. She looks around, searching for an ally, for anyone else who sees the wrongness of the situation. Finding no one, her gaze drops to her phone, her courage failing her. "I would like to speak to your supervisor, please," Anya says. Her voice is the calm eye of the storm raging inside her. "Supervisor's busy," Miller retorts instantly, "and questioning my authority isn't a good look for you right now, Dr. Sharma." He butchers the pronunciation of her name, another small, deliberate cut. "It's Sharma," she corrects him calmly, "and I am not questioning your authority. I am requesting the proper procedure." This is the procedure when we've got suspicious documents, Miller says, his voice rising, feeding off the confrontation. We decide what's proper here, not you. Bryant continues his desecration of her luggage, carelessly handling a delicate, expensive set of surgical loops. He and Miller exchange a glance, a flicker of shared understanding forged over years of unspoken agreements about who deserves respect and who is subject to their whims. These credentials could be fake, Miller declares, holding up her official United Nations medical mission badge. Easy enough to print something like this off the internet. A security camera high on the wall silently swivels to center the confrontation in its frame. Miller's radio crackles with a dispatch, but he ignores it. Your passport shows an inconsistent travel history, Miller announces, inventing a new infraction on the spot. That's a major red flag for us. Take off your shoes. He points to a spot on the floor, directly under the harshest of the overhead lights. Anya sees other travelers in the next lane walking through with their shoes on. She slips off her heels, her eyes locked on Miller's. She is no longer just a doctor. She is a student of law again, remembering her training at Yale. Document everything. Observe. Do not escalate. Use their overconfidence against them later. We're gonna need a full search, Miller says, his voice loud enough to carry, to draw more spectators. He signals to Bryant, who approaches her with a fresh pair of gloves. Instead of taking her to a private screening room, which is standard protocol, Miller positions her in the middle of the concourse, turning her humiliation into a public spectacle. Travelers slow down, their morbid curiosity winning out over their hurry. They stare openly as this poised professional woman is systematically dismantled. Bryant empties her entire suitcase. Her medical equipment, her research notes, her personal effects are strewn across the steel table. Her neatly folded clothes become a public exhibition of her private life. A Rimowa suitcase. Louboutin shoes, Miller narrates, lifting each item with the tip of a pen as if it were evidence in a crime. Expensive tastes. Where does a humanitarian doctor get the money for all this? The insinuation hangs in the air, thick and poisonous. He holds up her official White House visitor's pass between two fingers. And what's this? A pass to the fantasy land? That is an authorized security credential for a scheduled federal briefing, Anya states, her voice unwavering despite the fire in her veins. Right, and I'm the King of England, Miller smirks. Nearby, a janitorial cart squeaks to a halt. Elena, a woman in her late 60s with eyes that have seen everything this airport has to offer, watches the scene unfold. Her gaze meets Anya's, and in that fleeting moment, a spark of solidarity, of shared experience across generations of indignity, passes between them. With slow, practiced movements, Elena reaches for her phone, angling it just so, capturing the scene without drawing attention. But Miller's paranoia is a finely tuned instrument. He catches the movement. His head whips around. Hey, no recording in a secure area. He strides toward Elena, his hand outstretched. Give me the phone. Now. The commotion attracts the attention of Airport Police Officer Ramirez. He approaches, his expression professionally neutral, but his eyes are sharp, taking in every detail. The scattered high-end belongings, the composed woman, the belligerent TSA officer, the frightened janitor. This woman is interfering with a federal security screening, Miller says preemptively, trying to frame the narrative. She's non-compliant, and we have reason to believe her documents are fraudulent. Officer Ramirez looks at Anya, then at the mess on the table. His eyes narrow almost imperceptibly. He doesn't challenge Miller directly, but he doesn't leave. He positions himself a few feet away, a silent, calculating observer. Anya's phone rings again, the screen flashing AG office. Miller snatches it from the bin before she can react. At that moment, Anya's mind bifurcates. The outer Anya maintains her statuesque composure, her breathing slow and measured. The inner Anya is a flurry of activity, recording data with cold, hard precision. Officer Miller, Frank, badge Sergeant 734. Time, 14:22. Violations, unlawful search, destruction of a federal document, profiling, public humiliation, denial of counsel. This moment is filed away in a mental evidence locker, placed alongside a lifetime of similar experiences. The guidance counselor who told her medicine wasn't for girls like her, the patient who demanded a real American doctor, the colleague who assumed her promotion was due to affirmative action. She makes a silent, ironclad vow. This will be the last time. A man like Miller will never operate with impunity in her presence again. Miller answers her phone, holding it up like a spoil of war. TSA security checkpoint, he barks into it. His expression shifts as he listens to the voice on the other end. A voice that is deep, calm, and radiates an authority that needs no volume to assert itself. Dr. Sharma is currently being detained for security violations, Miller responds, a defensive tremor entering his voice. We have protocols we must follow. The voice on the other end cuts him off mid-sentence. The muscles in Miller's neck tighten. She'll be available when our investigation is complete, he snaps, before abruptly ending the call. He glares at Anya, then darts a nervous glance at Officer Ramirez. He leans in close to Anya, his voice a low, menacing hiss. Your fancy friends in D.C. can't help you here. This is my house. While Miller stomps off to argue with a supervisor over his radio, Officer Ramirez steps closer to Anya. Ma'am, are you in need of medical assistance? He asks, the formal question a clever pretext to create a moment of private communication. Anya meets his gaze. No, thank you, officer, but please call this number. She recites a 10-digit number from memory, her voice a near whisper. Tell them exactly what you have witnessed, every detail. Ramirez's face remains impassive, but he gives a single, almost invisible nod before moving away. Finding a quiet alcove near the airport administration offices, Officer Ramirez makes the call. It's answered on the first ring. This is Attorney General Thorne, a voice says, the same one that had shaken Miller moments before. Sir, my name is Officer Miguel Ramirez with the O'Hare Airport Police, he says, his eyes scanning his surroundings. I'm calling about your wife, Dr. Sharma. The Attorney General's voice drops a degree, becoming as cold and sharp as surgical steel. Officer Ramirez, give me every name, every badge number, and every single thing you've seen. Start from the very beginning. As Ramirez gives his concise, factual report, a storm is gathering in Washington, D.C. The Attorney General ends the call and turns to his Chief of Staff. Clear my schedule for the rest of the day. Get me the Director of Homeland Security for the Midwest region on a secure line. Now. Back at the checkpoint, Miller feels the ground shifting beneath him, but he can't understand why. This woman's unnatural calm is unnerving. Most people screamed, cried, or begged. They gave him the justification he needed to escalate. Dr. Sharma's quiet dignity feels like a silent mockery of his power. Your passport shows clear evidence of tampering, he declares, pulling another violation out of thin air. He gestures to Bryant. Take her to holding room 1. The room is a glass box, a human aquarium designed to make an example of detainees. Standard procedure for high-risk travelers, Miller announces to the assembled crowd of passengers, who are now filming openly on their phones. Bryant, sensing the situation is spiraling out of his control, hesitates. He's seen Miller go on these power trips before, but this feels different, dangerous. Still, the instinct for self-preservation is stronger than his conscience. He complies. Miller grabs a clipboard and begins filling out a form for passport destruction. When fraudulent documents are confirmed, he pontificates for the crowd, they must be neutralized immediately to protect national security. The airport's shift supervisor, a haggard man named Martinez, finally bustles over, his walkie-talkie spewing concerned reports from other staff about the growing disturbance at Checkpoint 4. "What the hell is going on here, Frank?" Martinez demands, his tired eyes taking in the chaotic scene. Miller launches into his well-rehearsed script. "Subject presented a fraudulent passport, sir. Exhibited evasive behaviors when questioned. Attempted to use falsified credentials to intimidate my officers. She's a potential flight risk." Martinez looks from Miller's smug face to Anya's serene one. He glances at his watch. 5 hours left on a double shift. A major security breach in Terminal B. He chooses the path of least resistance. "Fine. Follow the protocol, Miller. Just keep it quiet." As Martinez beats a hasty retreat, Elena, the janitor, slips into a staff break room. She attaches the video she'd taken to 2 emails, one to a contact at the Chicago Tribune and one to a public tip line at the Department of Justice, with the subject line, "Urgent, Civil Rights Violation in Progress, O'Hare Airport." "May I have a glass of water?" Anya asks from inside the glass box. "And I need to use the restroom." "Privileges are suspended during an active investigation," Miller replies, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "Once we've processed you, we can consider your comfort." Her composure continues to enrage him. It's an itch he can't scratch. At that moment, the supervisor Martinez's phone rings. It's the airport director herself. "Martinez, about the woman you have in holding room 1. But it's too late. Miller has already begun the ritual. He retrieves the metal bin with the torn passport. This time he doesn't just drop a match. He wants a show. He pours the dregs of his cold coffee over the torn pages, watching the dark liquid soak into the paper. "When we find fakes," he announces grandly, "we destroy them. It's federal law." He produces a silver Zippo lighter with a flourish, the click echoing in the tense silence. He sparks it and holds the flame to the coffee-soaked paper. A foul, acrid smoke billows up, the smell of burnt paper and stale coffee filling the air. Through the glass, he locks eyes with Anya as the last vestiges of her official identity are turned to filth and ash. "I require your full name and badge number for my official report," Anya's voice says, clear and steady, through the partition speaker. This simple procedural request sends Miller over the edge. He is the one who asks for names, who collects information. This reversal is an act of insubordination. "You're in no position to require anything," he snaps, his knuckles white where he grips his clipboard. "Interfering with a federal officer is a felony. You want to add that to your list?" Officer Ramirez returns, positioning himself strategically near the exit, his gaze fixed on the holding room. His stance is no longer passive, it is coiled, ready. Miller sees him, and a flicker of genuine paranoia crosses his face. The narrative is slipping from his grasp. "Requesting backup at Checkpoint 4, he mutters into his radio. Detainee is becoming agitated. Anya watches as Bryant begins to bag her belongings, her research, her surgical tools, her White House pass, each item sealed in plastic and labeled as evidence. "This is an illegal seizure of professional and personal property," she states, her voice projecting clearly to the dozens of phones now recording her. "I do not consent to this search or to the seizure of my belongings." Miller lets out a harsh, barking laugh. "Your consent is irrelevant, Ma. This is a matter of national security." Through the vast terminal windows, a convoy of black SUVs with flashing lights screeches to a halt on the tarmac, bypassing the civilian drop-off lanes entirely. Airport Director Simmons comes sprinting toward the security area, his polished dress shoes slapping frantically against the linoleum. 2 senior aides struggle to keep up. His face is pale, his expression that of a man who has just been told there is a live bomb in his office and he has a minute to defuse it. Miller sees the approaching delegation and puffs out his chest, mistaking their frantic arrival for a validation of his vigilance. "Sir, I've got the situation under control," he begins as Simmons bears down on them. "I've detained a high-risk individual attempting to enter the country with forged documents. Level 3 protocols have been initiated." Simmons plows past Miller as if he were a piece of furniture, his eyes locked on the glass holding room and the woman inside. Bryant, more attuned to the subtle shifts of power, freezes. He slowly, carefully, begins to gather Anya's scattered belongings, trying to repack them neatly in her suitcase, a desperate, futile attempt to undo what has been done. Oblivious, Miller slides a stack of forms under the glass partition to Anya. "You'll need to sign these. We're transferring you to a federal detention center. Homeland Security has a whole division for people like you. They'll be very interested in where you got such a high-quality forgery." In the crowd, a businessman in a tailored suit finally speaks up. "This is ridiculous. She asked for a supervisor half an hour ago." A murmur of agreement ripples through the onlookers. Just then, the main terminal doors slide open with a pneumatic hiss. Attorney General Marcus Thorne enters the terminal, and the atmosphere changes instantly. He is not a man who walks. He is a presence that moves. Tall, imposing in a perfectly tailored suit, he radiates a cold, focused fury that seems to suck the very air out of the room. He is flanked by a team of 6 federal agents, their movements economical and precise, their eyes sweeping the area. They part the sea of gawking travelers without a single word. Miller, still trying to get Anya to sign his forms, doesn't see them until his supervisor, Wallace, grabs his arm, his face the color of ash. "Franklin, for God's sake, turn around," Wallace whispers, his voice trembling. "That's the Attorney General of the United States, and he's coming right for us." The blood drains from Miller's face. His mind, which had been soaring on a cloud of self-righteous power, comes crashing violently to earth. He looks from Wallace's terrified face to the approaching phalanx of federal agents, and finally, to the woman in the glass box. His Adam's apple bobs convulsively. Bryant takes 3 quick steps back, away from the holding room, raising his hand slightly as if to say, "I'm not with him." Marcus Thorne doesn't break stride. He doesn't need to show a badge. His face is his credential. He walks directly to the glass room where Anya stands. Their eyes meet, a universe of communication passing between them in a single, silent second. He places his palm flat against the glass, a gesture of connection and promise. Then he turns, and the full, unadulterated force of his position is unleashed upon the TSA officers. "Identify yourselves. Now," he commands. His voice isn't loud, but it cuts through the terminal's din like a laser. Every officer involved in this provides their identification immediately. "I am Attorney General Marcus Thorne. My office has received a credible report of multiple ongoing civil rights violations at this checkpoint." He lets the words land, each one a perfectly weighted stone. "Open this door." Wallace, shaking, fumbles with his keycard, swiping it twice before the lock clicks open. Miller, in a final, pathetic gambit, steps forward. "Sir, with all due respect, we were following protocol for a suspicious document." Marcus cuts him off with a look so withering it could freeze fire. "Officer Miller," he says, his voice dangerously quiet, "I co-authored the Patriot Act and wrote half the protocols in your handbook during my time in the Senate. I am intimately familiar with what they permit and what they forbid." He reaches into his jacket and produces a slim leather folio. From it, he removes a pristine, backup diplomatic passport for Dr. Anya Sharma. He holds it up next to Miller's sloppily filled-out incident report. "My wife," he says, his eyes boring into Miller's. "Always travels with a duplicate set of documents, a precaution she was forced to adopt after years of dealing with men exactly like you." A collective gasp goes through the crowd. The whispers spread like wildfire. His wife. Anya steps out of the holding room, her composure as flawless as ever. She stands beside her husband, a united front of formidable power. "For the record," she says, her voice now amplified by the authority standing beside her, "I am Dr. Anya Sharma, Senior Advisor to the National Institutes of Health and the lead consultant on the President's Global Health Security Initiative. I was returning from a United Nations humanitarian mission in Yemen." She then proceeds to recite, with the detached precision of a surgeon dictating operative notes, every violation she endured. "Officer Miller detained me without probable cause. He destroyed my federal passport without authorization. He denied my requests for water and legal counsel, and he conducted an illegal and humiliating public search while making repeated discriminatory remarks." Suddenly, witnesses are everywhere. Elena, the janitor, steps forward, her phone held out as evidence. The young college student from the line approaches an FBI agent, her voice shaking but determined. "I saw the whole thing. He was baiting her." The businessman in the suit corroborates the story. The phones and their damning footage are collected by the agents with quiet efficiency. Officer Ramirez steps up to Marcus Thorne. "Sir, I witnessed the entire interaction. Officer Miller's actions were a gross deviation from established TSA protocol and violated multiple federal statutes. I attempted to de-escalate and was ignored." Airport Director Simmons hovers on the periphery, his face a mask of pure terror. The potential lawsuits, the media firestorm, the career-ending implications are all flashing behind his eyes in a dizzying slideshow of disaster. Marcus turns his attention to the airport executives. "This was not an isolated incident," he says, his voice flat and cold. "This was a symptom of a disease. I want the last 5 years of incident reports, personnel files, and passenger complaints from this entire terminal on my desk by 0800 tomorrow." Hours later, Director Simmons stands before a hastily arranged press conference, the popping of camera flashes like small explosions in his face. "Philadelphia International Airport offers its most profound and sincere apologies to Dr. Anya Sharma for the utterly inexcusable treatment she was subjected to today," he stammers, reading from a statement his legal team had drafted. "The actions of the personnel involved are a betrayal of our values, our protocols, and the public trust." Behind the scenes, it's chaos. Lawyers are calculating potential damages in the hundreds of millions. Homeland Security has set up a command center in a conference room, taking sworn statements from every employee who was on duty. Miller and Bryant are suspended indefinitely. They are stripped of their badges and credentials and escorted from the building by the same airport police they once commanded. In an administrative office overlooking the tarmac, Marcus Thorne has his jacket off, his sleeves rolled up. He's on the phone with the president. "Mr. President, I'm here with the O'Hare leadership. I believe you had a message for them." He puts the phone on speaker. The unmistakable voice of the President of the United States fills the room, cold and furious. The board members, who had been slumping in their chairs, snap to attention as if struck by lightning. The story goes viral. Justice for Dr. Sharma trends worldwide. The videos, Miller sneering, the passport burning, Anya's unshakable dignity, play on a continuous loop on every news network. Anya herself, composed and articulate, addresses a small group of reporters. "This was never about me," she says, her voice resonating with conviction. "I have a husband who is the Attorney General. I have resources. This is about the thousands of people who are subjected to this kind of treatment every single day and have no recourse. The people whose names you will never know. This is for them." Her words transform the narrative from a story about an elite couple to a referendum on systemic injustice. Have you ever felt powerless against a system? Trapped by a bureaucracy that doesn't see you as a person? Think about that as we move into the fallout of this story. Because what happened at O'Hare didn't end at O'Hare. It started a revolution. Stick with us, and remember to subscribe to Beat Stories for more narratives that challenge the status quo. The data pours in. Analysts at the Department of Justice work around the clock, combing through the 5 years of records Marcus Thorne demanded. The pattern is undeniable and sickening. Officer Frank Miller had singled out travelers of color for secondary screenings at a rate 1,200% higher than their white counterparts. Black and brown women, in particular, were his preferred targets. The data is a cold, mathematical confirmation of a lived, painful reality. Dozens of passenger complaints against him had been filed over the years. They were consistently dismissed, logged as unsubstantiated or subjective by supervisors, including Martinez, who prioritized efficiency and staff morale over passenger rights. Bryant, facing the end of his career and potential federal charges, cooperates fully. In a videotaped deposition, he lays bare the rot within the system. "We had unofficial guidelines," he confesses, his voice barely a whisper. Miller called it vetting with instincts. "We were trained to look for indicators. But they weren't security indicators. They were just profiles. Accents, religious headwear, expensive luggage on a person of color. We were taught how to word the reports to make it look random." Elena's testimony is a bombshell. The janitor, the woman who had been invisible to Miller, had been keeping her own records for 15 years. Meticulous, handwritten logs of incidents she had witnessed. Dates, times, officer names, a summary of the abuse. "No one ever listened to me," she tells the investigators, laying out her worn notebooks on the polished table. "So I made my own archive." Her secret files provide a roadmap for the investigation, identifying other problem officers and complicit supervisors across the airport. Officer Ramirez is given a commendation by Homeland Security. His official report, combined with his call to the Attorney General, becomes a key piece of evidence. He reveals that he had filed formal complaints about Miller's behavior twice before, both of which were buried by his superiors. The public outcry is deafening. Congress schedules emergency oversight hearings. The video of Miller burning the passport has become the defining image of government overreach, a symbol of systemic abuse of power. A massive class action lawsuit is filed, with Elena's notebooks and the newly unearthed security footage providing evidence for hundreds of other victims. The congressional hearing room is a circus of media and political theater. Miller sits beside a high-priced lawyer, his face pale and clammy. "Officer Miller," a congresswoman begins, her voice dripping with contempt. "Can you please direct this committee to the section of the TSA handbook that authorizes the ceremonial burning of a United States passport in a public trash can?" Miller clears his throat. "In certain exceptional circumstances, when a document is confirmed to be fraudulent, we are trained to neutralize it." "Neutralize it? By dousing it in coffee and setting it on fire with your personal lighter?" the congresswoman presses. "The handbook explicitly forbids the destruction of any travel document. It mandates confiscation and submission to the proper authorities. Is that not correct, Officer Miller?" His lawyer whispers frantically in his ear. "My on-the-job training may have differed from the written protocol," Miller mumbles. Bryant's testimony is devastating. He confirms the existence of the unofficial profiling, the coded language, the culture of impunity encouraged by supervisors. When it's Miller's turn to speak again, his composure finally shatters. "Dr. Sharma was exhibiting classic signs of a suspicious individual," he insists, his voice rising to a panicked shout. "She was uncooperative, Argumentative. Argumentative? A senator interjects, gesturing to a large screen where the video of Anya calmly requesting a supervisor plays on a loop. Is that what you call argumentative, officer? Or do you mean she was a woman of color who refused to be intimidated by you? Miller flinches as if struck. These people, he sputters, they come in here thinking the rules don't apply to them. These people? The senator repeats, letting the words hang in the air, a confession in 2 words. Collins realizes his mistake, but it's too late. The mask is off. Finally, Dr. Anya Sharma testifies. She does not speak of her anger or humiliation. She speaks as a neuroscientist. The trauma inflicted by this kind of systemic discrimination is not merely emotional, she explains, her voice calm and authoritative. It creates a chronic stress response that has measurable, long-term physiological consequences. It damages neural pathways. It shortens lifespans. It is not just an insult, it is a physical assault. She speaks not as a victim, but as an expert witness, and her testimony silences the room. The fallout is swift and brutal. Miller is fired and faces a raft of criminal charges. His supervisors are removed. The TSA launches a top-to-bottom review of its training and oversight procedures nationwide. 6 months later, the Secretary of Transportation unveils the Dignity in Travel Act, a sweeping set of reforms born directly from Anya's ordeal. Body cameras are now mandatory for all TSA officers. A new civilian oversight board is created with the power to investigate complaints independently. Anonymous reporting kiosks are installed in every airport. Elena, the janitor, is appointed as a paid civilian consultant to the new oversight board in Chicago. Officer Ramirez is promoted and put in charge of rewriting the training curriculum for the entire TSA, centered around de-escalation and constitutional rights. 1 year to the day after the incident, Dr. Anya Sharma walks through the security checkpoint at O'Hare. The change is breathtaking. The air of tension is gone, replaced by an atmosphere of quiet professionalism. The officers are diverse, courteous. Digital signs display a passenger's bill of rights in 6 different languages. Body cameras are a visible part of every uniform. The officer who checks her ID smiles. Dr. Sharma, he says warmly, I read about your new TBI protocol in the news. Incredible work. He doesn't recognize her as the Attorney General's wife, but as a celebrated scientist. She sees Elena, now dressed in a professional suit, observing the checkpoint with a tablet in her hand. They share a smile of mutual respect and victory. Marcus joins her, carrying 2 coffees. He's not here as the Attorney General, but simply as her husband, accompanying her to a medical conference in Vienna. The system caught an officer in Denver last week, he tells her quietly. The new monitoring algorithms flagged his screening patterns. They removed him before an incident could happen. Prevention, Anya says with a deep sense of satisfaction, not just punishment. They walk toward their gate, hand in hand. Around them, the airport hums with the quiet efficiency of a system that has been forced to become better, more just. Anya knows that prejudice hasn't been magically erased from the human heart. But she also knows that when good people are vigilant, when they refuse to be silent witnesses, and when systems are designed to hold power accountable, change is not just possible. It is inevitable. The true measure of a society's security is not how it treats its most powerful, but how it protects the dignity of its most vulnerable. This story is a testament to the power of one voice, amplified by many, to challenge and change a broken system. But the fight for justice and dignity is never-ending. That's why we created Beat Stories. We are committed to bringing you these powerful, true-to-life narratives that matter, stories that inspire conversation and, more importantly, action. If this story moved you, please hit that like button to help it reach a wider audience. Share it with your friends and family. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel and become part of a community that believes in the power of truth. What will you do the next time you witness an injustice? Let us know in the comments. This is Beat Stories, where every story is a call to action. Now, what will you do?